Okay, we're starting on episode 1, page 5 in the text. The most important thing for you to remember in the very beginning is that we're going to essentially map the lineage of Shield to Hrothgar. So, if you want to refer to the back of the book, page 139, back of the book, 139, there is the family tree of Shield to Hrothgar. Also, on your characteristics and conventions chart, number 11, catalogs and genealogies are given. This is a great place to actually write down this as textual evidence, the map from Shield to Hrothgar. So let's start on page 5. Then Beowulf was king in that Danish castle, Shield's son, ruling as long as his father and as loved, a famous lord of men. And he in turn gave his people a son, the great Healfdene, a fierce fighter who led the Danes to the end of his long life and left them 4 children, 3 princes to guide them in battle, Haregar and Hrothgar and Helga the Good, and 1 daughter, Years, who was given to Onila, king of the Swedes, and became his wife and their queen. So then on your characteristics and conventions chart, under number 11, I would write lineage from Shield to Hrothgar, lines 53 through 62, and use that as evidence of that characteristic and convention of an epic. Then Hrothgar, taking the throne, led the Danes to such glory that comrades and kinsmen swore by his sword, and young men swelled his armies. And he thought of greatness and resolved to build a hall that would hold his mighty band and reach higher toward heaven than anything that had ever been known to the sons of men. And in that hall he'd divide the spoils of their victories, to old and young, what they'd earned in battle, but leaving the common pastures untouched and taking no lives. So, as you notice in the notes behind my head, Hrothgar leads the Danes to great glory, and many warriors swear by his sword. He's a fantastic soldier and a fantastic leader, so people flock to him. Hrothgar then decides that he's going to build a giant hall. Think of a Colosseum. And it's there that once a battle is over, he will be able to return with his men, and they will celebrate. The work was ordered, the timbers tied and shaped by the host that Hrothgar ruled. It was quickly ready, that most beautiful of dwellings, built as he'd wanted. And then he whose word was obeyed all over the earth named it Heorot. His boast come true, he commanded a banquet, opened out his treasure-full hands. That towering place, gabled and huge, stood waiting for time to pass, for war to begin, for flames to leap as high as the feud that would light them, and for Heorot to burn. So, in those last couple lines, we get a lot of information. Hrothgar builds a hall. Its name is Heorot. The hall is used by the Danish warriors upon their return from battle, celebrating victory, dividing riches. On your theme tracker, under wealth, you could use that, the fact that they're building a hall in order to celebrate their victories and divide their wealth, as evidence of the theme of wealth. That was lines 75. But then on lines 80 through 85, there's foreshadowing, and it's the foreshadowing of the destruction of Heorot. Fire will envelop the great hall. It will be destroyed. So what the narrator is doing is the narrator is telling us that something bad is going to happen. That is to get the reader's attention. But it's also to remain objective, which is another characteristic or convention of the epic. Number 6. The narrator is telling both sides of the story. Yes, there were good things that were happening, but know that there were bad things happening as well. So, picking back up on line 80, his boast come true, he commanded a banquet, opened out his treasureful hands, that towering place gabled and huge, stood waiting for time to pass, for war to begin, for flames to leap as high as the feud that would light them, and for Heorot to burn. Again, there's the foreshadowing. A powerful monster, living down in the darkness, growled in pain, impatient as day after day the music rang loud in the hall. The harps were rejoicing call and the poets' clear songs, sung of the ancient beginnings of us all, recalling the Almighty making the earth, shaping these beautiful plains marked off by oceans, then proudly setting the sun and moon to glow across the land and light it. The corners of the earth were made lovely with trees and leaves, made quick with life, and with each of the nations who now move on its face. So the narrator has just told us that there's a monster who lives underneath the hall, and he is in pain. Physical pain because of the sounds and the songs and the happiness that is being celebrated in Heorot by the Danes. Because what's happening as part of the rejoicing is a rejoicing in the fact that there is a God, and namely the Christian God, or God himself. So on your theme tracker under religion, on lines 90 through 98, they talk about the story of creation, which is a Christian story. So I would put that down as a contrast to religion, to the presence of Christianity in the poem. So the monster underneath, who is listening, the monster's name is Grendel, we'll learn that later, is so unhappy that the Danes are happy that he actually will now rebel and fight them. And then, as now, warriors sang of their pleasure. So Hrothgar's men lived happily in this hall till the monster stirred, that demon, that fiend, Grendel, who haunted the moors, the wild marshes, and made his home in a hell, not hell, but earth. He was spawned in that slime, conceived by a pair of those monsters born of Cain, murderous creatures banished by God, punished forever for the crime of Abel's death. The Almighty drove those demons out, and their exile was bitter, shut away from men. They split into 1,000 forms of evils, spirits and fiends, goblins, monsters, giants, a brood forever opposing the Lord's will, and again defeated. So as we finish episode 1, we'll know that there's a lot of information that we can add to our chart. On the characteristics and conventions chart, the supernatural forces, gods, angels, demons, we just heard the story of Grendel, and that he is actually the spawn of the devil. There is also information that talks about the story of Cain and Abel, which is a Christian story. We can add that to the supernatural forces on our characteristics and conventions chart, or we can contrast that on our theme chart under religion. Okay, so there's a lot of things that you can add. Again, review the notes that are behind me, and they will also add to the understanding of the religious elements as well as the characteristics and conventions.